The summer of 24 was one of those seasons that felt like it belonged to a different time, a softer time, when the world seemed to slow down just enough for you to notice the way the light fell through the trees. My name's Tom Harper, and I'm 30 years old, living in a quiet little neighborhood in suburban Ohio, where the houses sit close enough to feel neighborly, but far enough to keep your secrets. I'd been in that house for a couple of years, fixing up the old porch, mowing the lawn, living the kind of life that feels steady, but sometimes too quiet. That summer, though, something shifted, something that still feels like a gift when I think about it. Across the street lived Sarah Miller, 32, with a smile that could make you forget your own name for a second. She had this way about her, warm, unhurried, like she carried a piece of the past in her laugh. Her house was one of those cozy bungalows, with flower boxes under the windows, and a front door painted a soft blue. I'd seen her plenty of times, watering her garden or carrying groceries, always with a wave and a "Hey, Tom." That felt like it meant something more than just neighborly courtesy. We'd chat sometimes about the weather, the best diner in town, or how her roses were doing better than mine, but it was always just that, neighborly. One evening, late August, the air thick with the scent of cut grass and honeysuckle, my phone rang. I was in my kitchen, stirring a pot of chili, the radio playing some old Springsteen song that made me think of high school summers. The screen lit up with Sarah's name, and my heart did a little jump. "Tom," she said when I picked up, her voice soft, but with the tremor I hadn't heard before. "I hate to bother you, but could you come over? I could use some help." I didn't ask questions. I turned off the stove, grabbed my keys, and crossed the street, the dusk wrapping around me like a warm blanket. Her porch light was on, casting a golden glow, and when she opened the door, there she was, Sarah, in a simple cotton dress, her auburn hair loose around her shoulders, her eyes carrying a mix of nervousness and something else, something deeper. "Come in," she said, stepping aside, and I followed her into the living room, where the air smelled faintly of lavender and old books. The house was warm, lived in, with the couch covered in a quilt her grandmother had made. She told me later, and a record player in the corner spinning something soft and jazzy. "I didn't know who else to call," she said, sitting down, her hands twisting in her lap. "It's silly, really. I've been feeling so alone lately, and I saw your light on, and I thought." She trailed off, her cheeks flushing. I sat across from her on an armchair that creaked under my weight, and waited. Sometimes, you learn, the best thing you can do is just listen. Sarah took a breath, her eyes meeting mine. "It's been a long time since I felt wanted, you know? Like someone really saw me. Not just the neighbor or the woman who works at the library, but me." Her voice cracked just a little, and I felt something in my chest tighten. I knew what she meant, more than I wanted to admit. My own life had been a string of long days, work at the hardware store, evenings alone with a beer and the TV. I hadn't realized how much I'd been missing someone until she said it. "I see you, Sarah," I said, my voice low, steady, like I was afraid of breaking the moment. "I've always seen you." It wasn't a line, not some practiced thing. It was the truth, spilling out before I could stop it. Her eyes softened, and she smiled, a small, real smile that made the room feel brighter. We talked for hours that night, the kind of talking that feels like unwrapping a gift you didn't know you needed. She told me about her life growing up in a small town not far from here, how she'd always loved books because they made her feel less alone, how her marriage had ended a few years back, because sometimes love just slips away like sand through your fingers. I told her about my own past, the dreams I'd had of being a musician before life steered me towards something steadier, the way I sometimes missed the kid I used to be, the one who believed anything was possible. Somewhere in the middle of all that, she reached for my hand. Her fingers were warm, soft, and I felt a spark, like the first note of a song you've been waiting to hear. "Tom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I don't want to be alone tonight." There was no pretense in her words, just a raw, honest need, and I felt it too, that hunger for connection, for something real. I moved closer, sitting beside her on the couch, and when she leaned in, I kissed her. It was slow, deliberate, like we had all the time in the world. Her lips were soft, tasting faintly of the tea she'd been drinking, and I felt her sigh against me, like she was letting go of something heavy. My hands found her waist, her arms wrapped around my neck, and we melted into each other, the world outside fading away. It wasn't rushed or frantic. It was like coming home. We moved to her bedroom, a small room with a window open to the night air, the curtains swaying gently. There was a quilt on the bed, another one of her grandmother's, she said, and a lamp casting a warm glow. We undressed each other slowly, not out of hesitation, but because every moment felt worth savoring. Her skin was warm, soft, and when I touched her, she shivered, her eyes locked on mine. There was no hurry, no need to prove anything. It was just us, two people finding each other in a world that sometimes feels too big, too empty. That night, we explored each other with a kind of reverence, like we were rediscovering something we'd lost. It wasn't just about the physical, though that was their intense, overwhelming, the kind of intimacy that makes you feel alive in every part of your body. It was about the way she laughed softly when I kissed the curve of her shoulder, the way she whispered my name like it was a prayer. We moved together, finding a rhythm that felt like it had always been there, waiting for us. Every touch, every sigh, was a conversation, a way of saying I'm here, and I see you. Afterward, we lay tangled in the sheets, her head on my chest, the quiet hum of the night outside wrapping around us. I haven't felt like this in a long time, she said, her voice soft, almost like she was afraid to break the spell. I kissed the top of her head, breathing in the scent of her hair. Me neither, I said, and I meant it. It wasn't just about the act, though that had been incredible. It was about the connection, the way we'd let each other in. Past the walls we'd both built over the years. We stayed like that, talking until the sky started to lighten, sharing stories about the lives we'd lived, the people we'd been. She told me about the summers she'd spent with her grandparents, riding bikes down dirt roads, the way the world felt endless back then. I told her about the first time I heard Dylan on the radio, how it made me want to write songs that meant something. We laughed about the little things, her terrible cooking, my habit of leaving tools scattered on the porch, and it felt like we were building something real. In the days that followed, we fell into a rhythm, like a song you can't stop humming. I'd come over after work, or she'd show up at my place with a bottle of wine and a smile. We'd cook together, or sit on her porch swing, watching the fireflies blink in the dusk. Every touch, every glance, carried weight, a reminder of what we'd found. And yes, there were nights when we lost ourselves in each other again, when the world shrank to just the two of us, skin on skin, hearts beating in time. But it was more than that. It was the way she'd leave a note on my fridge, just a simple, "See you tonight," that made my whole day brighter. It was the way I'd catch her looking at me, like I was someone worth seeing. Looking back, I think what made it so special was how ordinary it was, in the best way. Love, I've learned, isn't always about grand gestures or fireworks. Sometimes it's just a hand reaching for yours in the dark, a voice saying your name like it matters. Sarah and I, we're still figuring it out, still learning each other. But every time I cross the street to her house, every time I see that blue door, I feel it, that quiet, steady joy of knowing someone sees you, really sees you, and loves you anyway. Life's taught me a lot by 30. And one thing I know for sure, the best things come when you least expect them. Like a neighbor's call on a summer night, like a woman who feels like home. And when you find that, you hold on. Not because you're afraid to lose it, but because it makes every moment better, fuller, more alive. Sarah and I were writing our story one day at a time, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.